Good morning, good morning, good morning again, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. Before we do the usual disclaimers, and then we're going to just jump in, alright? Alright, folks, in the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much. They've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit. They did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there, NeuroClastic's public statement in regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks' first article in regards to Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called trouble male teens that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault. The boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually do his job. And you got a governor off his nuts, so please read that article, share it on all your social media. We got the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign as well, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of, catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, please go ahead and use those headphones, alright? Trigger warning, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they're watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is advised, alright? Alright, where we left off, going back to the table here. You remember table 2, where there was no full functional assessment done? I'm not over it. I am not over it. Hell in the name of God. Okay. I went to podunk school, okay? Podunk school in the world of dueling banjos, alright? Yet somehow they knew to tell my mom and my aunt to go get a full functional assessment done. These kids are going to school in Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, places that are supposed to be some of the most progressive states in the Union, and definitely more of the better funded. Yet none of these teachers, none of these schools, at any point, went to the parents when these behaviors are so bad, we have to send them off to another school. But not a single one ever thought to maybe advise the parent to go get their kids assessed. But they tried everything, folks. Not over it. Not even remotely over it. Let's go on, shall we? Table 2 shows mothers' recollection of behavioral assessments and program planning, or lack thereof, as their children were served across their placements. Our interviews revealed that none of the mothers had heard of the term functional behavioral assessment. Upon further inquiry to determine if perhaps the assessment process was done without their knowing the term, there was still no recall of anything close to this process. Who's surprised? Is anybody surprised? But Massachusetts is progressive. Unless you're disabled, then they just want to kick the can down the road. Although we cannot definitively conclude that there was no FBAs conducted, we felt confident in concluding that the mothers were not involved in the assessment process or behavioral intervention planning. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. It never happened. Okay? It never happened. They saw problem behaviors and they kicked the can down the road instead of doing the smallest part of their jobs. I'm going to say it. Because if I could go to high school in the land of the dueling banjos, and those teachers with far less education and resources than those on the East Coast knew to tell my folks that I needed a full functional behavioral assessment, then they are 1,000 times more liable for their incompetence. See, I think there's a difference. There are teachers out here who are very humble and not full of themselves. They know where they are lacking. They know that they don't know and do not have the capacity to handle those of us with these diagnoses. So they will refer parents to those who do. I think in these more progressive states where there's better funding and better education, there's ego there, right? We can figure this out ourselves. Well, it turns out you can't. But now, because of your ego and because you can't take it, you'd rather kick the can down the road and pretend nothing ever happened than to own up to your own failures. Just saying. We also probed for any types of strategies focused on antecedent interventions. None of the mothers indicated a knowledge of any such strategies. Again, why? Because there was no assessment done. Therefore, how could you even come up with an intervention that's going to help with that one particular student or another when you're flying blind? Yeah. The only types of strategies they recalled were the use of positive and negative consequences, Keith's mother said, referring to a prior placement. They just used restraint. They had conference rooms they would put him in, like a timeout room. I feel that this is a good way to deal with the behavior. Put him in the room that was padded and give him some time to calm down. But the behaviors got worse, not better. Oh, gee, I wonder why. Because this is why seclusion rooms are bad, folks, because it's not dealing with what's triggering the behavior. The longer you leave the trigger unchecked, the worse it's gonna get. This is basic logic 101. Okay? This is not a situation where if you ignore the problem, it's going to go away. No, it's gonna get louder. Alright? He suffered some adverse effects like twitching in his hands. Let me move up here. It didn't help at all. Of course it didn't. Because no problems are actually being addressed. The school is literally doing nothing for this kid. Literally nothing, not even the bare minimum. Bare minimum is what was suggested for me. They did not have the expertise or the funds. So they went to my folks so that they could get me properly assessed and then get the helps and behavioral intervention plans and everything that I was going to need. We were then able to build my circle of support. And then, once we got everything all together, then we brought the teachers and everyone back in and got everybody all together. Then we were addressing the issues because we knew what they were and could adjust, provide reasonable accommodations, assistive devices, whether I need to go cool off for 2 minutes and then come back in once I could actually communicate like a human again, so we can go over what was triggering that. But that's crazy talk, Tiff. Crazy talk. Similarly, Carla's mother summarized what one school did about aggression. The school was writing a behavior plan of action which included times outs, taking away of outings, some snacks, mostly punitive. They did incorporate stars that Carla could earn, some rewards. It worked for a while. Oh, Jesus Christ. Give me a moment. And you'll wonder why it didn't work. So I'm going to be blunt with you, folks. It can't work without a full, functional behavioral assessment. Because you don't even know what's wrong. You're treating them like one of Pavlov's dogs. If you behave, you'll get a cookie. Excuse me, trigger warning, I'm a curse. For fuck's sake. And you wonder why these kids go from school to school to school to school to school. Because no one's doing their homework. No one's putting the work in. Or even doing what my teachers did and say, you need to go get this person a full functional behavioral assessment. And then we can build and work from there. Nobody did this for these parents. Nobody. None of these schools that these kids got shipped to had any clue what they were doing, what they were working with, because it's like driving blind in a hailstorm. It's no shock nothing worked. Because the work wasn't done beforehand to deal with what's triggering this. You want to know what happens when you ignore a trigger? Take it from me. Over time, as it continues to get ignored and get ignored and get ignored, it just keeps getting worse. There's a reason why over a period of time, the severity of my meltdowns has decreased significantly. There's a reason why there are far less of them and how they happen far in between now from when I was younger. Because the work was done. The assessment was done. The reasonable accommodations. The teaching of life skills like making lists and formulating routines, and when it calls for it, even alternative routines that I can pivot to so I don't get stuck in autistic fog brain, that were put into place for that very reason. Most of my behavioral issues, the few that I did have, came out of immense frustration. Intense, immense, and overwhelming frustration. You throw PTSD and trauma on top of that. Bullying. The list is it's endless. It's actually endless. This is why I feel like beating it into the educational system's head like with a hammer so that maybe they might actually get the point. If you are in a situation where you don't understand what's going on, but you are seeing these behaviors and you're seeing it causing problems and you're seeing this kid get increasingly more aggressive or self-injurious. It should be common sense to refer the parents to professionals to get a full functional assessment from which a behavioral intervention plan can be put into place. And then brought to you and explained in a way that you can wrap your brain around and move forward from there, developing from there the IDEA and the IEP goals. It should go without saying. Massachusetts, New York, and Rhode Island are supposed to be some of the most progressive and wealthiest states in the Union, bar none. Bar none. Seems to me that people need to start putting aside their own egos, accept their own limitations, and refer to professional things that they do not understand and have no ability to be able to change themselves. We're going to go ahead and close on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.